So I'm heading right now to Oceanside. My wife is driving. We are going to see Dr. Mary Ellen Shannon, who is my ozone doctor, and she is absolutely incredible. People who have mold illness, I have just found that most of these people have underlying chronic infections, and the one therapy that sort of bridges the gap between Lyme disease treatment and mold treatment, that connects those two and makes them coherent and useful, is 10-pass ozone. None of the other ozone therapies, like insufflations, all the stuff you can do at home, really help at all. I mean, they help a little bit, don't get me wrong, but if you're really sick and messed up, they don't do enough. And so, for some reason, if you're straddling those two illnesses, mold illness and Lyme disease, then the 10-pass ozone is the ticket to being much better. I'm not saying there's not other ways to get better, and I'm not saying the 10-pass ozone won't help you if you have only mold or only Lyme disease, but in my experience, this combination of the two is what does the trick. And we know in mold illness that one of the goals is to get unmasked, which means that you are able to detect mold in your surroundings. You become unmasked, you can sense mold. Most people cannot when they are very sick. And the way that you get unmasked is we're exiting the freeway now to go see Dr. Shannon in Oceanside, California. One of the ways that you get unmasked is to get away from mold for a while. We do what's called a mold sabbatical. That is where you leave your stuff, leave your house, leave your car temporarily, and you go somewhere that's a known good place, and you take a break from your moldy house and your moldy surroundings, and you then go back later after you're clear of the mold exposure, and you see if you react to your stuff. And getting clear, detoxing the body a little bit from the mold, can help unmask you and make you aware of your moldy surroundings. But I have found there to be a problem with that. This is just me personally. I'm not speaking for the larger community consensus or the knowledge base, but one of the problems with that I've found is that if your infections are too robust or out of control, it can be very hard to become unmasked. And so one of the things that I think that the 10-pass ozone does is, it's like, I would almost joke and call it a mold sabbatical in a bottle, okay? It's a way to take a mold sabbatical without actually taking a mold sabbatical. It's a way to get clear of infections and mold in the body so that the body starts reacting. And then you're probably thinking, why would I want to react to mold if I don't now? Well, it depends on how sick you are. If you're really sick, then reacting to mold may help you because it's your body telling you to stay away from the bad molds that are making you sick. So that was what led to my getting a lot better. So when you do the 10-pass, and you guys might say, oh, that's a crazy claim. How can it be a mold sabbatical in a bottle? Well, the answer is that I did this. I lived in a moldy house, didn't know it, was masked, needed to be unmasked, but didn't know any of this at the time. Came down to see Dr. Shannon here in Oceanside, California, stayed at a moldy hotel, again, without knowing it, felt fine in the hotel room, and after my first couple of ozone 10 passes, all of a sudden I started reacting to my hotel room really badly. I got out of there and I literally couldn't be in my hotel for more than a minute without leaving. And this was previously fine for me to be in. So clearly there was something going on there. I got unmasked immediately from the 10 pass, which makes sense because it, I think, sort of accomplishes the same thing that a mold sabbatical does. It removes the mold and the infections temporarily from the body so that you can have these reactions to mold. Now, I think that even people who do not have mold still benefit tremendously from 10-pass ozone. We already know this. A friend of mine named Kathy has had 10-pass, and it basically got rid of her Lyme disease, and she doesn't have mold as far as she knows. So there's a huge amount of ways to use the 10-pass ozone. One of the ways is that Ozone is sort of a shotgun approach. You guys can see the ocean up there. I'm just now pulling up to the ocean. Beautiful place, beautiful city. Very blessed to be here. One of the things that we know about Ozone is that it is a shotgun treatment. It helps hundreds of different things at the same time. These homes in here are just gorgeous, by the way, on the coast. We're gonna go park and go see Dr. Shannon. But the Ozone helps many things at the same time, including Lyme disease, cancer, viruses, a lot of other things. So my focus has been mostly ozone and mold and Lyme disease, but it's really useful for a lot of things. Now, Dr. Shannon is one of the most experienced ozone practitioners in the whole world. She'll deny this because she's very humble and very sweet, but she actually is one of the most experienced in the world. And one of the reasons for that is that she was very sick herself years ago and used ozone on herself to recover. And she also has a lot of experience working as a doctor in other settings where she's had experience doing IVs and this kind of thing. So not only has she personally healed herself with this, but she's also a physician who has a lot of experience clinically. And so she's really the perfect person. I've tried to do 10-pass ozone elsewhere, and I always come back to Dr. Shannon because she is the best. So we're gonna go talk to her in a minute, and here's another beautiful view of the ocean and the waves crashing here. See if I can get a shot of that here. So we're gonna go talk to Dr. Shannon. She is also doing a new laser treatment, IV laser treatment at her clinic in Irvine, which also she says helps Lyme disease patients, and I believe her because she's been right about pretty much everything. So I really do think that 10-pass ozone for me, in addition to mold avoidance, but 10-pass ozone has been sort of like the hub or the cornerstone, if you will, of recovering from Lyme disease and mold. I was very, very sick from those two things. Some people may not need it because they're healthier and they can do mold avoidance. Another great thing about 10-pass ozone is that it makes you need to do less avoidance, less mold avoidance, because to me, it's sort of like mold avoidance in a bottle. Now, I'm not gonna say that you don't have to do mold avoidance because that hasn't been my experience. Mold avoidance has also been equally as important to me. But, you know, I don't think that either would work without the other. Mold avoidance wouldn't work without 10-pass, and 10-pass wouldn't work without mold avoidance. Now, I do think that mold avoidance would work without 10-pass, but if you have a family and you need to be around some mold and you have to work, life's not perfect. You know, some people live out in the desert in a tent and never go anywhere. Yeah, if you can do that, maybe you won't need the 10-pass, but the 10-pass makes everything a whole lot easier. I am extremely blessed to know Dr. Shannon and to be able to come see her and do my 10-pass here. So we will go and get more 10-pass today. Hey guys, this is Brian, and a few days ago I told you guys that I was going to be doing some 10-pass with Dr. Shannon here in Southern California, and I asked you guys if you had any questions, and I got about 10 people that had some questions. So I am actually doing my 10-pass right now as we speak with Dr. Shannon here, and I just jokingly asked her if it would be okay to do this little chat while she's doing the 10-pass, or if that would distract her, and she kind of laughed at me and said, no, she's got this down.
I got it down.
Yeah, she's got it down. And in all seriousness, though, Dr. Shannon probably has done this procedure more than anyone in the world. Maybe there's a few people that have done it more, but she's done it a lot. She actually used it to recover from some health challenges she was facing herself, and that really means a lot to me, because a doctor who understands the treatment, who's used it on themselves, and who's really, you know, had firsthand experience with it is super valuable, as you guys know. So I am going to be asking her a few questions here while we finish this treatment. Okay guys, this is Dr. Shannon.
Hi.
She is my hero. Quite literally saved my life. Um, so the first question we have here is, when you start off a new patient, how do you decide if you should do all 10 passes or just start with one, or along those lines?
Well, I start off right away with 10 passes, and as long as the patient has normal platelets and does not have G6PD, which is a genetic problem that can cause your cells to hemolyze if you got ozone. So as long as we ruled out those two contraindications, other reasons why I wouldn't do 10 passes because of someone with recent heart attack, someone with active bleeding, because as you know, I have to give heparin in order to make the blood flow back and forth without clotting. There are people that like to just start out with one pass, but honestly, it's an expensive procedure, and I use the same, my overhead is the materials. So the materials are the same, even though my time is less if I just do one pass. A lot of my patients are from out of town. We don't want to mess around, give them the best bang for their buck, and just get down to it. And I've been going right with 10 passes right away for the majority of my patients. Now there are some that people will express to me that they're super sensitive and that they have real hard time with the Herxheimer reaction, the die-off. So then I take that into consideration. So there have been some where I just have done 5 passes on the first time. But I usually do 5 to 10.
Yeah, and I'll also comment on that. The ozone is different than some other therapies where the more you use, it's harder on the body and it is toxic and it leaves around a bunch of Herx materials. Ozone kind of cleans and wipes out and heals across the board. So personally, I've noticed that when I do more passes, I actually almost feel better because I just think it's just a very healing treatment. Okay, so next treatment is, what about any concerns with using heparin for sick patients, or just heparin in general?
Well, heparin, as I said, you have to have a blood thinner of some sort because I need to, right now we're vacuuming his blood up and then I mix the ozone and then we push it back in. And if I didn't use some kind of anticoagulant, it'd probably clot off pretty soon. What are options to have I seen any reactions to heparin? There are some people, actually it was one of the doctors I work with, she started getting itchy. So it's very unusual for someone to be allergic to heparin itself. It's more so the components that they mix into it. But, I haven't had any problems with the heparin. So there are some other anticoagulants, but the volume that you have to use is so much more that I'm used to heparin. I know the properties. I used heparin a lot when I was practicing OB/GYN. I'm very comfortable with the drug and dealing with the side effects. And I do, now you can see I have this it's a 3-way stopcock. I try to minimize the amount of heparin I use. This syringe has 5,000 international units in right now. I have another syringe that will have another 5,000. And so I try to stay below 10,000 international units, which is important to ask the physician that's doing your 10 pass, because some people give you 20,000 off the bat. And I think heparin stays in your system. It'll burn off 1,000 international units per hour. So in 10 hours, my patients are back to their normal clotting status. Now, if you did 20,000, then it's 20 hours. So you're dealing with a higher dose of medication. I feel the more complications you could possibly get, even though it's very minimal.
Yeah, I'll point out too that Dr. Shannon, being skilled at this procedure, she has some tricks to use less heparin, like switching out the tubes and some other things. And I've talked to other doctors that use a lot more than she does, so I think she's very conscientious in that regard.
It is, because you'll notice even when people use larger amount of heparin, you may get some blood in their urine. The patients get blood in their urine. 10% of patients will, but the more heparin you use, you're going to see that side effect more often. As long as the what we call hematuria goes away within 24 hours, then it's nothing to worry about.
So the next question regarding using 10-pass ozone with somebody who has multiple chemical sensitivity or MCAD, mast cell. I'll start off on answering that just because I read about this stuff all day long. But um, I came down here over the summer when I was really in this mold intensification phase, getting out of mold, and I had some MCAD issues, and I was actually kind of terrified to do the ozone because I just had been really dealing with the MCAD stuff, and I actually came into her office and I was worried that we shouldn't do it, and she assured me that it's not an issue and that ozone will actually help. And that's actually what happened was when I walked out of the treatment, the MCAD was much better, and I did a few different ozone 10 pass sessions here, and by the time I went home, the MCAD was really mostly gone, and it hasn't come back since then. My theory had been based on reading some other research and my own experiences that ozone would do nothing but help MCAD because it generally is related to infections and toxicity and pathology that ozone helps. Didn't you also say that you had a MCS patient who's been doing ozone? So
Yes.
Mary Ellen actually has experience with ozone and
Yes.
MCS. So what happened with that?
He did great. He said it was a huge part of his healing. He ended up having mold illness and then got a chemical sensitivity and actually couldn't even, he broke so many leases, he couldn't live in an apartment. He was actually living in his car because it was so severe. And the ozone was a major player in getting him back into the building where he's working, and so he's doing much better. So no, ozone is not a contraindication to chemical sensitivity, and as a matter of fact, it helps. And also, you have to remember that ozone's immune modulator, so it will help. It'll help those settle the immune system. If it's firing up too much, it'll bring it back into homeostasis. So that's another great benefit of ozone.
Yeah, I will say that I have found that ozone is extremely useful for anything mold related. So this guy who had mold toxicity and then got out and had multiple chemical sensitivity, that's pretty common. We know that happens when you get out of mold. The MCS flares up. So I just can't recommend 10-pass enough. I think, I honestly, I've told Dr. Shannon this, but I think that when I got out of my moldy house, I think I was too far gone, really, to come back to being alive. And I really do think that the 10-pass is what kind of lifted me out of the grave, literally. And so just 20 seconds for those of you guys who don't know, but what a 10-pass is basically we're using an older version of an ozone therapy called MAH, major autohemotherapy, where blood is removed from the body, ozonated, and then put back into the body. But the new version that works a lot better is where you actually do that 10 times in one sitting. That's why it's called a 10-pass. So she's taking out blood from my body 10 times, ozonating it, and then putting it back in. So it's really like getting 10 MAH treatments in one. So I had someone ask, what about oxidative damage and stress? And this is one of those things that I think is so fascinating because ozone really works on hormesis, or the hormetic effect, where it actually reduces oxidative stress by getting the body kind of revved up and well, I'm not the doctor. I'll let Dr. Shannon explain
No,
it.
he's right. So what ozone does is it is an oxidative therapy. So it stimulates your body to say, hey, get the defenses going. Let's stimulate the immune system. Let's produce more glutathione. Let's produce more nitric oxide so we get better circulation. Deposit more oxygen into your tissues. So it puts the bany in an alert status where it's defending itself. So it starts ramping up on glutathione and nitric oxide, and provides the body with more NADH, which feeds the electron transport chain, which produces more ATP for the body. So it's a wonderful therapy, and in my opinion, there should be an ozone store in every corner instead of a drugstore. because it's antimicrobial. I do it now just to stay well. I never want to get sick again. When I originally got I've done over 400 treatments on myself now. And so
400.
when Bryan said, can I do an interview at the same time doing it? Yeah, I think so. But it has also helped save my life, because when I first learned about this, Dr. Lahadny said if you do the 10 pass and you do multiple treatments in a row, it's like a poor man's stem cell treatment. It stimulates your body's stem cells, which I needed to repair and regenerate damaged tissue that I had from excessive iron overload from my genetic disease that I didn't know I had. So, and it definitely worked. You know, I was diabetic, I had thyroid issues, I was knocking on death's door, and Ozone has definitely helped me bring back my vitality, and so I can work and share my story with other people and help people get their lives back just like I did.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think is so great about Ozone is it really is a shotgun approach, in that it is so powerful in helping the body get back on its feet that you don't always have to know exactly, pinpoint precisely what the problem is in the body, because it helps so many different things. And you know, I being a healthcare journalist, I have a lot of friends who are doctors, and I get, you know, free supplements, and I try different stuff all the time. And the only thing that I really keep coming back to is 10 pass over and over. And I've done, this is probably my 25th one. I was extremely sick to start with, so a lot of people don't need that many. But and actually, that was another question that we're kind of working our way into was, do people become addicted to it, or, you know, reliant on it? And I'll just start off by saying that I don't think that's really a fair question, because our world is so toxic, and, you know, our food is toxic, and, you know, we're just surrounded by so many insults against the way that our bodies were designed to function, that needing something to stay healthy, especially as we get older and we've been sick and we have Lyme or we have cancer or we have mold or whatever, you know, it's the body's going to need some help. And so I think my answer to that is it depends on how well you're able to take care of yourself, if you're going to need it all the time or not. But, you know, I've had some setbacks in my healing, and I don't look at Ozone as a crutch so much, or like a reliance. I look at it more as a blessing, that when something does go wrong, I can go back to the Ozone. It's just so much better than going back to conventional doctors and hospitals and being sick, you know. So anyway, that's my thought. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
No, I definitely agree. I think Ozone works synergistically with your body. You know, it's, a lot of people will ask me, you know, just the same question: how many treatments am I going to need? Usually we say, you know, you start out with one treatment per week for 10 sessions. And usually in infectious disease or autoimmune disease, you should start feeling better after 10 treatments of the 10 pass. And then you taper off, and then you see, and it's individualized. Some people I'll see once a month, some people I'll see, you know, every 3 months. So it just depends upon what I'm treating. I treat a variety of things. From professional athletes who want to increase their endurance to cancer patients. So it's very individualized. It depends what I'm treating and how the patient is nutritionally. If they have a lot of nutritional deficiencies, they're not going to get the benefit of the cascade of reactions that Ozone creates. So then they're going to need more treatments. I also like to make sure that all their drainage systems are open, because Ozone, this type of Ozone that I do, kicks up a lot of debris. So you want to make sure that they don't have their kidneys are functioning, their liver's functioning, and I do recommend, you know, doing some detoxing along with this, like infrared saunas or coffee enemas or lymphatic massages, just so your body doesn't recirculate these toxins and they are actually excreting them. So it's very beneficial for everyone.
Do you find there are certain predictive factors that will tell if it's going to work for someone or not, or is it just sort of going to benefit everybody across the board.
Everybody needs oxygen, right? So it's going to benefit everyone across the board.
Yeah.
And there's no harm unless someone's actively bleeding, because the heparin is the only side effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things that I really love about Ozone is ever since getting sick with mold and Lyme, I found that adding things to the body usually doesn't help me. Vitamins, minerals, antibiotics, supplements, whatever. And I think the amazing thing about Ozone is it's really lifting the burden from the body, because Ozone oxidizes a lot of this crap that's in our system. And when I do Ozone, I don't feel toxic or burdened. I feel like the burden has really been lifted. I think we're kind of getting to the end of the questions here. I will make a comment. Someone asked about if Ozone wipes out the microbiome, and I've always sort of wondered that. And the best explanation I can come up with really actually kind of came from Lisa Peterson, who is the PhD researcher that moderates the Mold Forum. But I tend to believe that most of the microbes in our microbiome that we want are the ones that actually do okay in oxygen environment, and they're not going to get wiped out by ozone. And the ones that we don't want are the anaerobic ones that don't like the oxygen. And my experience has been the more ozone I do, I don't feel like I'm damaging the microbiome. I've taken a ton of antibiotics for Lyme, so I know what that feels like, and I never have had that feeling at all with ozone. Do you feel like there's any damaging effects from it?
No, I don't think there is at all. With me doing 400 treatments on myself, your gut microbiome is extremely important, as we all know with research, even more research coming out, that you need diversification of your microbiome. So, I do recommend people take probiotics, but they need to rotate them. So you don't just take the same 7 strands that you're rebuilding. You want to eat fermented foods, breathe in the mountains, breathe on the beach, because you get in some microbes just inhaling them. That will help your microbiome. But the microbiome is very important. I just, it all starts with the gut. You got to fix the gut, because if you don't fix the gut, then it's going to impair your immune system. It even causes depression, which I didn't know until I took my integrative medicine fellowship. 70% of serotonin is produced in the gut. That's a neurotransmitter that, when it's low, causes depression. And conventional doctors, I was one of them. Like someone comes in, they're depressed. Here's my script pad for some Zoloft, which is sad, because we're not getting at the root cause, just covering up with the medication. So if you are depressed, you gotta look at your gut, and your gut, if you get leaky gut, it's gonna set up for a whole slew of autoimmune diseases. So you gotta fix that, and you really gotta watch what you eat, because our food these days are depleted in nutrition, and then with the GMOs and being sprayed with Monsanto, the glycosides, it's really ruining our soil, where we don't have the minerals. Our soil isn't enriched with minerals, because these pesticides are killing the bugs in the soil, which provide the nutrients in vegetables, and so it's a cascade of reactions. So I think yes. So do I think ozone messes up your gut? No, I think it helps it, because it's much better to rebalance the gut with ozone than antibiotics or anything else. It's gentler.
Yeah, one of the things I really admire about Dr. Shannon is she's always learning, and she's at a point in her career where she doesn't need to be. She's already as successful as any doctor really needs to get, but she's constantly going to conferences and teaching me stuff and learning. So a lot of the stuff we talk about in the mold community, I come in and I expect Dr. Shannon not to know about, and she knows about it. And
well, it's because of patients like you that are so well read, they keep me on my toes.
Yeah, it's kind of like our social hour doing ozone, because this is a time-intensive treatment. She really cares about her patients and is willing to do this. A lot of doctors will, not be as involved in the 10-pass process and just hand it off to nurses. And she does have nurses and assistants that help her, but she's very present and engaged. And It's just a very, very inquisitive mind. And it's interesting that you bring up too the walking on the beach and the mountains, because we actually in the mold community, we were just talking about this today, that the microbiome gets really messed up inside mold patients, and one of the best things you can actually do is to go expose yourself to better microbiomes, where the microbiome isn't trashed from mold and chemicals and stuff. So that's interesting. Last question: if you is there any way to find a good ozone doctor, or is anybody offering 10 pass good enough?
No, I would go on Dr. Robert Rowan, is who trained me, and you go on his website, and he trains physicians like 3 or 4 times a year. And his training is very good. He's been doing ozone since the 80s. He's the godfather of ozone. And so that's, I would recommend going to his website, seeing, and get a list of doctors' names on his website that have been trained with him. Would probably be the safest thing to do. Or word of mouth, too.
Yeah, that's a good point, that all the, the machines generally are the same, but maybe asking your doctor who trained them, how long has the nurse who's doing the 10 pass been doing it, if it's not the doctor themselves.
Right.
Yeah, Dr. Rowan is I've interviewed Dr. Rowan before, and he's very smart, very well respected ozone doctor. But I think also just experience in someone who's been looking for a doctor who's actually been doing it. So do you have any other comments you want to add?
No, but we're just about done here. But I'm gonna go ahead and put Bryan on the Weber laser. This is another treatment that I learned in just last May. I got the opportunity to go to Germany and study with Dr. Weber. And the Weber laser is so nice with ozone because it's another way to, they both work synergistically together. It's another way to kill microbes, the blue, and we'll show you later on how the laser, we thread a fiber optic catheter just right through the IV site, and the blue and the ultraviolet are antimicrobial. So, and then the red and the green light will promote circulation. The green will help the hemoglobin work better by depositing more oxygen in the tissue. The red will help with inflammation, which is present with all chronic diseases. And it also helps with circulation. And then we get the yellow light. The yellow light helps produce more serotonin, so it'll help with depression. And it helps with detoxification, and it also helps with the production of vitamin D. All the lights will stimulate different phases in the mitochondria so that you produce more ATP. And we know that the reason why, the root cause of a lot of chronic diseases is inefficiency of what we call the mitochondria. And both of these treatments will increase your energy within the cell. And a lot of cancers, what happens is the energy of the cell goes down because of infection, because of heavy metals, because of nutritional deficiencies. And then it changes to what we call anaerobic metabolism, which is very inefficient, and that's how a cancer cell develops.
Yeah, so in a minute here, we'll switch the camera and I'll show you guys the laser treatment, but that's just another example of how Dr. Shannon is always innovating. She's already one of the most well-recognized and respected ozone doctors, and instead of stopping there, she is always, learning what the most cutting-edge thing is, so I really appreciate that. But thanks, you guys, for listening, and I will, when we're done here, we'll go ahead and check out the laser. Oh, let me tell you, if you want to make an appointment to see Dr. Shannon, she's very busy, so you better call ahead, but she works for the Center for New Medicine in Irvine, California. Center for New Medicine in Irvine, California, and you can easily Google that and find her phone number and the office website. Thanks again. Hey guys, so we are back. I just did the laser treatment and we were too busy chatting and talking to film the actual treatment, but I thought I would give you guys a little view of what we have here, and Dr. Shannon can tell you a little bit about it.
Sure. This is a Weber laser, and it's also from Germany. And there's a lot of YouTubes Dr. Weber has about the lasers, so if you want more information on the laser. But what's nice about this is that it has multiple uses. I can use this externally. I can use this through a fiber optic that I put in the IV site, so that's intravascularly. I can do it put it in knees after I do plasma-rich platelets. I thread in the fiber optic through a needle so that you can do it what we call interarticular into the joint. We can even place these needles around breast tumors or any kind of tumors and give a photosensitizer. That will be a way to treat cancer. But this is a laser machine, and so we have 6 different colors. We have red, blue, green, yellow, and ultraviolet. And then over here are infrared lasers. The infrared lasers are primarily for external treatments because you have better depth of penetration when you use these externally. The red is very good for inflammation. It's good to improve your circulation. The blue is antimicrobial. The green will help the hemoglobin deposit more oxygen into the tissues. The yellow will help you increase more serotonin. It helps you produce more vitamin D, and it also helps you detoxify. And then the ultraviolet is, again, antimicrobial, and you can give some photosensitizers prior to your laser treatment, which will enhance the effectiveness of each laser. Such photosensitizers like curcumin is a photosensitizer for the blue light. So the blue laser will work that much better to killing microbes. Vitamin C is a photosensitizer for ultraviolet. So, and then there's a substance that has a proprietary blend called poly-MBA+, which I use a lot on my Lyme patients because it is both a photosensitizer for the blue and the ultraviolet. I think this helps people with Lyme disease, mold illness, cancer, just because of the antimicrobial effect and enhancing your circulation. I encourage all of you to read about it, and this is another way to optimize your health.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this is we've known for a long time that these different light spectrums have beneficial effects, but they don't really penetrate through the skin. Mm-hmm. So there have been all of these different devices that you can kind of do on the skin, and I think this brings it to a whole new level, being able to have it go directly into the blood. And also you were telling me that some of these devices combine the different lights into one device, and it sort of weakens it because you have, 5 colors in one little diode, and being able to separate them out and use the one that you need for the day, or the 2 or all of them, it's just such a new way to do it. So I really appreciate your time sharing this with us. And again, you guys can check out Dr. Shannon's work and her clinic if you do a Google search for Center for New Medicine in Irvine, California. Thanks again.
All right, thanks.